Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Our keynote address for this showcase is coming from Dr. Erik Viirre, Director of the UC San Diego Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination. Dr. Viirre, welcome.
Well, thanks so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today, especially to my friends at the Institute for the Global Entrepreneur with Dennis and the School of Engineering with Dean Paisano and everyone over there. So what I'm going to talk about today is how are we doing in medicine in the incredible changes that we've had with the onset of our epidemic, and how mobile technology is really a key part of my life and everybody else's right now. Beyond working at the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination, I'm a physician at UC San Diego in the Department of Neurosciences, where I see patients, and I'm still seeing patients to help them with all the other medical problems that we have besides the COVID infections. And what's happening with me is I have to re-engineer the entire process of medicine that I've learned in my professional career. And what I now understand is that we really need to add engineers to change the process of medical care. So in the old days, back in the 20th century, back when I was in med school, we had a course in the first weeks of medical school called clinical methods. And that was where we were taught the basics of working with people who had illness. Back in the old days, they're called patients. And the patient would come for a consultation to the doctor's office. And in that consultation, a variety of procedures would go on. And they would always start off with the mantra of a history and physical examination, the history of the person's problem, and then our physical examination of their body. But what happens if I'm doing it the new way? What if I'm talking to a patient the way I'm talking to you now by video, and I can only see them with a video camera? And holding up my iWatch here, I literally use my iWatch during my patient encounters. I see them on my iPad, and I take messages and control my projects with my consultations with my computers. But I literally am not in physical contact with their body. So how do I do these crucial elements of interacting with a person when I'm in this new video intermediated interview? Now, if there's any slide that's important in my talk today, it's this one, which literally shows us turning on a dime the entire practice of medicine at UC San Diego's health system. What we see on these bar charts are the proportion of visits by video versus face-to-face. And down at the bottom, we see mid-March, March 16th, where 6% of visits were by video and 94% of visits were in clinic face-to-face, a person-to-person. And then what we see is on the 17th, we go to 16% video, 24% the next day, 31% the next day, 37% the next day. And of course, the corresponding proportion of face-to-face visits going down, down, down. And so within 2 weeks, what we see is we go from 6% video visits to 50% video visits on Friday, April the 3rd. A stunning change, a tectonic change in how we see patients. And to be a little bit crass about it, there was a very, very important event that enabled this to happen, which was in that second and third week of March, doctors were allowed to be paid for their video visits. And so through coordination with the insurance companies and the federal government's Medicare program, we were allowed to be paid for our work. So at the time of the quarantine and lockdown and social distancing, the insurance companies recognized that we needed to be able to continue to talk to patients and help them with their problems and be fairly compensated for that. So through a coordinated effort of technology implementation, just like we're using right now, plus practical activation of what was going on in medical insurance, we were allowed to start video consults, and we did. And it's been a stunning success and a dramatic action that's happened unprecedented in our medical careers, just like this global pandemic is an event that's never happened in human history before. So how does this affect me personally? So this is a slide from a paper that I did in 2006, where I describe the procedure where I evaluate a particular problem in a patient complaining with vertigo, with an inner ear balance disorder. And what you see on the screen here is something called the Hall-Pike test, which is a test for an inner ear disorder where there's loose debris in the fluids of the inner ear balance sensors. Now, what you can see in the very first panel is the face-to-face interaction, and I am the clinician is right in the face of the patient, holding on to their head, and then carrying out the movement that you see in the second, where the patient is placed prone. And in this particular condition that I see, which is the extremely common condition of positional vertigo, a vertigo attack is induced. And what happens in that, by the time that second position is achieved, is a terrible spinning sensation and a concomitant abnormal eye movement activity called torsional nystagmus. And that those eye movements need to be observed for proper diagnosis and evaluation of this condition. And so you can see the clinician is carefully examining the movements of the eyes of this person while they're experiencing a strong abnormal motion sensation. Now, there are not many other medical circumstances that get you closer. One of the few is an eye examination, where you're literally eye to eye with a patient, touching their face. And of course, our COVID responders are interacting with the respiratory fluids of people as they introduce breathing tubes, do intubation, putting a tube into an infected person's trachea, windpipe. So many, many medical procedures require this very, very dramatic and intimate personal interaction, the physical examination. Now, 10 years ago, I actually invented a technology to enable my being able to remotely do this particular assessment. I created a head-mounted display with indwelling video cameras, and so you can see the video images of the eyes. And this display would allow the person to see me in a remote fashion. So here's my old-fashioned chart from the patent that we wrote and the paper where we made the description of this particular technology working. So the person could see the clinician, the old white guy in the old days there, looking at the screen, and the clinician could see the person's eyes. And in fact, I was able to carry out that Hall-Pike test that you saw earlier. And in fact, the treatment procedure called the Epley maneuver using this particular gizmo. And as I'm a little bit proud, that was my very first patent, a telemedicine technology for this evaluation of the inner ear disorder, and a publication that came out of it, which is, as I say, where this particular paper came from. So we were literally able to do a telemedicine consult 20 years ago with these technologies. So in the larger scheme of things, here at UCSD, we hosted the largest medical prize in history, the Qualcomm Tricorder Xprize. And the prize was announced at the conference, the Computer Electronics Show in 2002, and the testing of mobile health devices brought in from all over the world was run right here in the Clinical Research Institute at UCSD. $5.5 million of prize money was given out, and the final awards were made in April of 2017. And the whole point of this prize was to say, can we use mobile health technology to enable people to better monitor their health system and interact with their healthcare professionals? And that was what we wanted to demonstrate with our prize. Now, what's a tricorder? So all you 20th century types like me remember that the tricorder was the device that Mr. Spock used and Dr. McCoy used when they were traveling on the Starship Enterprise in the TV show Star Trek. And in fact, one of my prized possessions, which of course is right here on my home desk, is my tricorder replica. And you can see the screen inside. And in fact, in the picture here, I'm super proud of my friendship with the Xprize winner, Dr. Basil Harris. And there we are with our tricorder replica. So what we wanted to do was show that, hey, Star Trek inspired the future, and in fact, it did. So the dream that I had at the time of completing the Tricorder Xprize, that we would be able to incorporate artificial intelligence. Now you can see how old this slide is because we're talking about IBM Watson. Remember IBM Watson, who won Jeopardy at IBM? These are the old days. That's the ancient history now. But would IBM Watson or some other AI be able to direct a medical interaction using these mobile health technologies and video screens? And that was my dream. So in fact, at the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination, I worked with a fantastic postdoc, and we created a chatbot that was able to ask questions, and you can see the dialogue on the left side here, asking about dizziness, and then on the right side, it was accumulating information that would be necessary for the evaluation of these inner ear disorders. So here at UC San Diego, we are in the post-Xprize era, where we are still running technologies. And of course, now we are in the post-onset of the COVID era. COVID ain't over yet. I sure wish it was. I'm waiting for the antibodies and the vaccine myself. And so we're running as fast as we can to bring these new technologies to bear. So we're working projects with prize winners. In fact, one of the exciting ones is an analysis of the acoustic signature of breathing and coughing in people with respiratory diseases. We were doing that initially on tuberculosis in Mozambique, and in fact now have a plan to test people with the COVID respiratory infections to monitor the onset of the disease and its resolution. So here at the ACHRI, we are doing clinical trials on mobile health technology. We have a new IRB that is dedicated to projects with medical devices. And a crucial thing that we're working on is the human factors. How usable are these technologies? Can people really do them? Can you use your iWatch to measure your ECG? And the answer is yes. Can you answer good questions? And an important partnership that has been established at UCSD is the Medtech Accelerator at the Institute for the Global Entrepreneur with Dennis and all of our colleagues over there to provide the business expertise. And this is an equal requirement between the technology development, but you got to have a survivable business. So what we're doing is accelerating this partnership between medicine and engineering, an entirely upgraded activity from our area in the 20th century. So my fundamental question is, how can I do this particular test with a smartphone where I have a person sitting up and then lie back and then examine their eye for this torsional, this eye movement that is as a twisting motion that is diagnostic for my condition, the benign positional vertigo. And so the answer is that we'll need an entirely new engineering process, where we incorporate video visits, incorporate business analysis, incorporate the payers, the technologists, and have a procedure where instead of the old construct of a medical consultation in the doctor's office is the way, but a new way where we start with technology, where we have human interactions brought in at the right time with different levels of medical expertise to get to the result, which is managing our health, minimizing our medical conditions, and of course, in our era, minimizing infection transmission. So with that, I'll say thanks so much to my colleagues at the Clarke Center for helping me get this recording done, working with my all of our friends there in engineering, and wishing all of you in the virtual MedTech Showcase the best of luck in the successful implementation of your technologies, and most importantly, making the business work so that you can get your fantastic technologies out there to the real world in a cost-effective and a profitable way, so that your business is successful and that we get to see the benefit of them in the consumer world. Thanks very much.